Preparing to live stream the meeting here. Setting up your meeting. All right, here we are. Hi, everybody. This is our first Real Talk with Insight Policing live streaming on our YouTube channel, Insight Policing. I'm Megan Price, Dr. Megan Price. I direct the Center for Applied Insight Conflict Resolution. We do Insight Policing training. Today, we are talking about this idea that's been coming up a lot lately with us, duty to intervene or peer intervention. Here with me today is Mike Delaney and James Lawrence. Want to say anything?
Yeah, hey guys, Mike Delaney here. I retired from the Prince George's County Police Department in 2016. I've been in law enforcement for going on 30 years now. Most of my time has been spent as a homicide investigator and as a robbery investigator. And now we do training for recruit officers as well as in-service training, which is veteran police officers. I also train with James Lawrence.
Yeah, and I'm James Lawrence. I'm retired from the Maryland Park Police, 30 years of service, and I've lived in the Prince George's County for over 40 years. Yeah.
Well, you're pretty old, buddy.
So we're here today kind of launching our live stream series where we take a topic and we break it down. What are we thinking? And Insight Policing is all about, you know, understanding our thought process and resolving conflict through communication. So today, like I said, we're talking about this idea of duty to intervene. And I think ever since, you know, well, George Floyd, particularly George Floyd, and now since the January 6th Capitol attack, you know, there's been this emphasis on an officer's responsibility to step up and say something if they see one of their fellow officers doing something either that compromises the constitutional or civil rights of a civilian, or, you know, demonstrates some sort of conspiratorial thinking, or, you know, white supremacy, or ideological viewpoints that might infringe on others. So people are talking about this responsibility of police officers. So for you guys as former officers, I mean, what is your personal experience of this idea of duty to intervene?
Lawrence, you being a 40-year veteran of Prince George's County, why don't you go ahead and start, buddy?
Well, I know from my experience of being a police officer, you have a different viewpoint for trying to tell a seasoned officer how and what to do sometimes. So you're a little intimidated because of the rank and the structure of how it is built. But just as a regular person, and I'm always a regular person regardless of whether I'm a police officer or not, you always have a duty as a police officer to do the right thing. And I think in the times that we're going through now, a little bit of doing the right thing has been put aside from being a police officer. A little bit of showing empathy and compassion and looking out for your fellow man or woman has been just disregarded. It's a power struggle sometimes, or it may be a little bit of a fear factor. I came on as an older police officer, so being in the military, and it wasn't that kind of way with me, but I saw lots of things that were not correct as far as what I consider to be showing compassion for the people you're supposed to protect and serve, and also speak out on it. Then you get what they call, or what they do to you, is shun you or blackball you, or, you know, don't invite you to the reindeer game, so to speak. You know, you get pushed away because you're not part of that team. So they don't want you because you don't go along with their program. But as a police officer, you're supposed to protect and serve everyone. And I know that there's a lot of different things going on now. We are supposed to be for justice for all. And black, white, and different whatever neighborhood you're in, if you're about doing the right thing, that shouldn't be a difficult thing to do. It's a lot of variables that go into that, but that's how I felt, that's how I feel, and I will always be like that.
So it
Lawrence, let
sounds
me
like,
ask.
yeah, go ahead. No, it just sounds like, you're saying some really interesting things that as a regular person, but also as a police officer, you do have a responsibility to do the right thing and to uphold justice and to keep people safe. And really that sometimes though, you're saying that there are power struggles or fear factors or not, or feeling like there are repercussions, like you might be shunned if you do. But ultimately, as a police officer, your primary duty is to be there for the community, for the people who you're supposed to serve.
Right. I believe that. I always believe that. And another part of reasoning for being a police officer is to be that helpful person or that person that in need, somebody comes to you. I think a little bit of that has gone away too because they don't trust us.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, Lawrence, let me add to this. I know you said you started at a late age. First, you were 30 when you started?
yes.
So I actually started before I turned 21, I began my police career. And even now, I feel that's too young. I mean, just the decisions that you have to make, even in this instance that we're talking about now, as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, it's kind of difficult to really step in. Even looking at the George Floyd situation, from what I read, that two of the officers were being trained. They were rookie officers with their field training officer. And I just know I can relate it to when I came on the police department, and we looked up as rookie officers. We looked up to our field training officer. They were like a father figure, and you knew you couldn't step out of line. I mean, that's how it was then. I know it's different now. This is back when there were no cell phones to record, there were no cameras all around, but you knew that whatever happened with your field training officer, you kept your mouth shut. So I related, once I saw that story, I could definitely relate. Now, times have changed because of the cameras, and you had so many cameras recording that. And as an officer, you're right. Everything that you guys said is correct. You have to intervene. You have to know that that's wrong. I mean, in that instance, for them to really take the life right there in front of you, you have to do something. I mean, because at that point, you're in trouble as well. And I mean, that shouldn't be the only reason you do it. Like you said, Lawrence, you should want to do better by being a police officer and by swearing in and taking the oath and
Right.
wearing the badge and the gun. You should want to do it, no matter what your age is or experience. So, but I know it's difficult though. I know it's difficult coming up.
Yeah. It sounds like there's a real tension, right? So you want to do the right thing. You feel like you're supposed to do the right thing. But at least when you were coming up, the culture was such that you looked up to the people who'd been on the force for longer, at your field training officers. They were the ones who showed you how it was really done. So how could you possibly say something if you thought that it was wrong? Because actually maybe that was right. It starts there's a tension there, right? You're not quite sure what's wrong and what's right when you're looking up to the people who have more experience than you.
I don't know if you're actually looking up as more as you are cautious of being blackballed or not being accepted, because everybody grows up with the right or wrong concept. And as police officers, we go through a high level of scrutiny to become police officers. They test you for this, they question you about that. They ask you these moral fiber questions to make sure your integrity level is worth being a police. So you're not going to steal, you're not going to rob, you're not going to do anything unjust to people just because of the color of their skin. But then when you get out here, there's a different level than just going through that particular interviewing process. You have to actually show, I guess what I was told when I was coming through was you have to let them see who you are as far as I'm losing the word, but it's like show them what you're made of or whatever, you know. So let's say you have a situation where it may cause a little more physical involvement. If you don't engage, then they're going to be upset with you about that. But if you go a little harder, then they may get on you about that. So you need to know where, as a police officer, where your level is, regardless, I think, and I haven't been in a situation like Delaney, what your age is. When you come into this job, you're supposed to come in with that level of integrity, respect, honor, all those things. But I didn't come in like that, so I can't really speak on that. But
now just imagine a 21-year-old, not just in my situation, but across the board, a 21-year-old. I have kids older than 21, so just thinking about them at 21 having to make that decision is like they were not ready. They weren't prepared for that. And we can all agree that right now, and Megan, I know we've never discussed this, but Lawrence, you and I have talked about this, but the quality of recruits that are coming joining the police department has lowered. And to be honest, I mean, I can speak about this now. The police departments have lowered their standards. They need to fill these seats. I mean, let's be real about it. So the quality of recruit has gone down. And I will tell you this, based on what's going on now or what went on at the Capitol and all these other incidents that are in the news now, you have a lot, especially a lot of minority recruits that are just turning away from police work. So that's something else we have to build on. We have to find a way to recruit quality candidates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's harder and harder to fill the spots. I mean, and that's not least because the relationship between the community and the police is so fractured right now. I mean, that's a hard position to take on, being a police officer, you know, stepping into those shoes. I mean, that takes a lot of courage of not only the work itself, but, you know, to step into a position where people might prejudge you, right, based on current perceptions. So yeah, I think it's really hard to recruit. So what do we do about it, right? I mean, what do you think? How would we prepare younger officers or even current officers who still, you know to do the right thing, but might not feel comfortable to intervene? Like, how would we prepare them to do the right thing or to step up?
Well, I think you have to talk like we're doing now. You have to talk and put it on the table and acknowledge that there's a problem there. You have to do that first. And then you have to train. You have to get with people with experience, and you have to train and show the proper way of doing things. And you have to go throughout training without the fear that you're going to make a mistake. And you have to go through and go, do the work, put the work in. What do you think?
But you were just saying, Mike, that, some of the people who you looked up to or who were training you might have been doing things that weren't necessarily the right thing. So how does that fit?
When I say training, I'm sorry, it's like we're training now. We train veteran officers and in-service, so they need the same amount of training as the recruits get. And again, the conversation needs to be had in all ages, all races, all backgrounds. We need to sit down at the table and be able to discuss this without, like Lawrence was saying, without being retaliated against, or you won't get the overtime assignment, or you should be able to sit down at a table and discuss what your true feelings are. And I think that's where you have to start there.
Well, like Megan was saying earlier about coming in, even finding out now that some of the background checks on some of these people that were police officers, some of their Facebook pages, some of their places they go and socialize and things like that are bringing out to the forefront. So maybe they never would have been police officers had that been done correctly, because you can't have that biased opinion towards a particular nationality and then saying you're protecting and serving for all the people. It just doesn't fit. And the way that they're doing things now with not just training, accountability with the body cameras, and then cameras, who knows, everywhere, with people having cameras. As an officer, you shouldn't be worried about those type of things if you're doing the right thing. It should take care of itself. It should protect you as opposed to hurting you. Now, I know people look at that as a slight because it's like they're watching me. But if you're doing the right thing, you're not concerned about that. And I know you can get in the heated moments of certain things, and things may get a little different or as far as dealing with individuals, but the right thing is a simple do unto other type thing, you know? It's not that complicated. And being trained by the right individual, we know the history of some of these people. We just choose to ignore it and not address it. And then the person that speaks out is the person that gets this, shunned away. He gets disbarred. He gets, no, we don't like you because you don't fit in what we're dealing with. It's like, well, I don't know. I could probably live in that, but I don't want to. But even to this day, there's people like that. But how we're doing as police officers, you got to start from the ground up and keep it moving in the right direction. And when it starts to go bad, that see something, say something shouldn't be a tattletale thing. It shouldn't be like, he's telling on me. It's like, no, you were doing something that was not fair to the people that help us, or, I was going to say pay our taxes, but to the people that we're supposed to protect and serve. It's not really that complicated. We've made it like that because we want to be, I guess, right. But I know intervening as a younger officer to a senior officer might be, who are you to tell me? But it's just a constructive criticism. We can talk about it in the midst of what we're dealing with if the person is being dealt with fairly.
Well, I think you bring up so many really good points, Lawrence. One, that speaking out and saying something has to do with it's being part of a team, right? I mean, it's being accountable to yourself, but being accountable to everybody else. And we talk so much about how the police officers, it's a brotherhood, it's a sisterhood, it's a group of people who are bound by their duty, right, to serve and their common experience. And so pointing out what's right and what's wrong is actually part of supporting one another. It's not calling, it doesn't have to be calling someone out or making them feel bad or, even generating more conflict. It's like, we're in this together, right? Let's do it in the right way. And you also brought up that sometimes policing is hard. And when you're dealing with individuals who are not complying or who are being difficult or, and conflict is really brewing as a result, then it's hard. It is actually hard to do the right thing, right? Because you have a job and your job is to enforce the law, to keep people safe, to get people to comply. And when people are getting in the way of that, sometimes it's hard to do the right thing because you just need to use your power or the power of force to get control. And that's where, insight policing does bear, because with insight policing skills, with communication skills that are rooted in conflict resolution, you can really, you can prepare yourself to engage with people who might be difficult in a way that brings them on board, that allows you or prepares the way for doing the right thing, as opposed to doing something that might be in violation of their rights, or how they would want to be policed, or how we as the public want to see policing happen, which is peacefully.
That's right.
Well, with your skill set, what you're teaching for the insight policing, it helps you get to that particular level of dealing with the individual without having physical conflict. But as a police officer, you've also been trained in that physical conflict. Mm. So when the individual comes and is beyond the insight policing skill, and we can't go any further with this, and the physical part comes on, you still have a balance in there. You still have judgments that are in there, even with what we saw with, I know what I heard about that one police officer in the Capitol where he diverted all those people. In the beginning, people were talking about him as being a coward. And it was like, really, this guy's facing a mob and he didn't go and pull his gun out and just start shooting everybody. Mm-hmm. He looked and saw what the situation was very, very quickly, in my opinion, came up with a plan and did what saved a lot of people. But in the interim of looking at that, it was I would have done, as police, we do that. And then the other part of what as the rest of the story was told, how he really saved a lot of people. And it's like, okay, maybe we don't know the rest of the story. So telling that truthful part, getting it out there helps with trusting what the police are doing as well, because people don't trust us anymore. And they don't believe in we're doing the right thing, or even have their concerns in mind when we're doing certain things because of all the coverage we've been getting negatively,
And it's a reflection on us all. Imagine being a veteran officer and you see in the George Floyd situation, you see the officers, their cruisers are to the side with the lights, the emergency lights on. So a veteran officer, you stop to back them up. Now, let's say you walk up in the midst of that and George Floyd is dying at that point. Now, guess what? You're part of that lawsuit as well. So you have to intervene and interact with that in that situation. So this is affecting everybody. I mean, it affects your pensions potentially, your police department, your budget. It affects a lot of things. And that shouldn't be the number one issue, but it really does. And now you, as officers, this is why we need to be retrained. You have to learn this. You have to learn it in the academy, and veteran officers need to be trained in service, like we said, Megan. It's a different mindset right now. You have to do it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no rights or wrong. You have to do it because, like you just said, in the Capitol situation, you didn't know the whole story. We didn't know it. But from the point that we saw on the video, if that's all we have to go on, then guess what? That's all we have at that point. So whether it looks good or bad or whatever, or in between, the story is still there. If it's out there on video that way, it looks bad. So as an officer, you really have to act. You must act. You have to act right away.
Oh, that's so interesting. So we're really we're running out of time here, but when that video did come out, right, people criticized it. What was he doing with his back towards the officers and things like that? And it wasn't until we understood what he was doing, there was some expert analysis and this, that, and the other, that it came out how heroic this guy's actions were. But you wonder, with the peer intervention or duty to intervene, is it would an officer intervene in that? Hey, buddy, what are you doing? What are you doing? Leading these people around the Capitol? Like, is this a tour? I don't know. I mean, maybe anyway, that just occurs to me. But in that, how, what might have happened had somebody stepped in there, and how could one do that in a way that was tactful and appropriate and actually tapped into that guy's mindset rather than derailing his whole plan, right? Because you are tactical as a police officer. And so, I mean, some things are blatant, and maybe that's really what we're talking about in duty to intervene, blatancy. But I think it's also, there's some nuance, and sometimes we don't know why people are doing what they're doing, and maybe there's a plan. So being able to tap into that in a way that opens understanding rather than derails or compromises actually something that might be valid or useful. It's just, it throws a little bit of some complexity into the idea, I think.
Yeah, one way or the other, and you hope it's the good way, you know what I mean? One way or the other, it could go good or bad. The person's not on their page when he does or she does intervene. I'm dodging the sun like that. Crazy.
So, any final words, Mike?
He can't be frozen.
I think he's frozen. Final words, Lawrence?
No, I really think that what your program teaches us as people, it helps us communicate better. If I could say that without derailing your program, I really think that what you're teaching us makes us better communicators and gives us different directions in ways to think about dealing with an individual. And no one should be upset about learning something new if it can make you better. And I think that's what your insight policing thing does. And I'm a 58-year-old man, you know, and I've dealt with a lot of different things in my life. I've dealt firsthand with people that don't like me just because I'm black, you know, and I don't understand that, but I listened to some of the things you were teaching, and it helped me calm myself down. You know, to this day, listening to some of the things that are going on in the world with what you're teaching is making me look at it a little differently and not understand it, not at all, but definitely be able to calm my response in that. So I can imagine what it must be like if you can deliver the message and the person can receive it that way. And you don't have to be physical with them. I would think that's a win for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love hearing that. So let's park this conversation. I think that we touched on so many really fascinating points and issues, and we will meet again next Thursday. Sound good?
Yeah, I'll be in a more shadowy place, that's for sure.
Okay. We like getting the tour of your kitchen. That's nice. Next time you can cook us some dinner, hey? All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. All right. Bye. Bye, Lawrence.
See you later.